71% of women are investing, but only 1 in 6 feels confident about where she's headed. Huntress is the all-in-one financial app built to help you make a plan, get actionable steps, and build your wealth. Join the waitlist at huntresswealth.com and get good with money.
Hi, Huntresses.
This is Talk Rich to Me,
where we get more comfortable talking about money and dealing with money.
brought to you by Huntress Wealth.
Welcome back, Huntresses. It's Yesenia. Today I'm talking with Laura Cunningham, founder of Ava, an AI-powered parenting partner. Laura shares what it's really like to raise venture capital as a woman founder, from the 100-plus investor conversations in 1 month to managing the emotional roller coaster while building product. We discuss the bias women face, why household labor is not niche, and what it takes to believe you're building a billion-dollar company. Laura Cunningham is the founder of Ava, and she's here to tell us her story of building Ava and how that looked going through and navigating the venture capital world. But to start off, we should really know, what is Ava, Laura?
Yeah. So Ava is an AI native parenting partner that proactively looks ahead and is always operating kind of in the background on your behalf, making sure that you don't drop balls related to your family, like admin and operations and logistics management. That does not exist in the same way that it exists for enterprises, right? Enterprises have all of these tools that they use for operations management, and the household doesn't have really any of those tools. At best, we have our shared Google calendars and our email.
I can't wait for you to take over my paper calendar that's literally sitting in my kitchen. I can't
Totally.
live without it.
Yes.
But we are here to talk about your story as a founder. And I think it'd be really helpful for people to know the background. So what inspired you to be an entrepreneur? Is this like a lifelong dream?
Before starting Ava, I spent about 15 plus years building products and like leading strategy. My most recent job before starting Ava was actually leading AI product strategy at a layer one blockchain called Near, which was definitely a wild and crazy experience. But I feel like I have always had a really entrepreneurial spirit across all of those different types of jobs. I've always like looked for really hard problems that I feel like we need to solve. And so I think that the spirit has been in me kind of probably since I was a kid. And I just didn't ever feel like I really had found a problem that was worth pouring your whole life and body and self into, really until Ava. The story there was I was spending all day working on like agentic systems and working with like founders and developers who are really pushing the bounds on what AI was able to do, sort of autonomous execution of things like buying pizza with crypto and things like that. And then at the same time, personally, I was living this crisis period of just feeling like I was failing at everything on the motherhood side. And so for me, it was like this deep, deep personal pain, but also a deep awareness of what this emerging technology was starting to be able to do. And so it was like this huge just combination aha moment for me.
Ava is quite literally your third child, right?
Quite literally, yes.
Yes. And she's a baby. You talked about this moment of the light bulb going off, but what really like propelled you into the building and creation stage?
I truly felt very alone at the beginning. It was like, I think I'm just really bad at this. I see other people who seem like they are thriving and they have their stuff together, questioning why I wasn't able to get it together, starting to actually have conversations with other people who were really experiencing this pain, surfacing all of this data. It was like that piece of, whoa, this is bigger than me. It's impossible to time the market, but there's just such a ripe opportunity for what we are building. And that's, I think, really what propelled me. The second is finding someone who wanted to build it with me. I think that was also just like so huge. I mean, you probably know this intimately too, but just your co-founder matters so much. And so having someone who both deeply understands the problem because he's living parenthood as well, and then also was just someone I think who is super complementary to like what I bring and and like can work well together and really see the same vision. Like all of that was also like really catalyzing.
You had the passion, you had the idea, the landscape was right, but what did that look like from the inside? But was it that, call it like jumping off the cliff moment into this entrepreneurial state? Like,
We really both acknowledged we needed to get to a pretty strong point of conviction in order to move on. And I honestly wasn't even sure that it was going to be something that was the thing that I was going to do. I was actually like interviewing for other jobs at the same time because I knew that my current organization was not the right one for me, but I wasn't totally sure that this was the right path. We got to a point where the prototyping was getting to a place where we're like, oh wow, there's something here. And so then I ended up leaving my job at the end of quarter 1 of 25, and then really diving into a fundraising process and a prototyping process of like, let's actually like start to put this together and see what it looks like. And then momentum started to really build, and it felt like we were really onto something. I mean, I think, as you know, in the beginning, you have to manufacture so much momentum. And so any positive signals you see, you're like, you grab onto and you're like, yes, like this is amazing.
and so for all the huntresses out there, when we talk about tech enabled firms, a lot of them have venture capital funding, meaning that there is a financial firm that raises money and invests in these companies. And so that is what we're talking about when Laura was building this company, is like her going out to those firms to take investment into her company. It's a very high pressure situation. When you were fundraising, was there a set amount of money that you were like, okay, we need to raise this much money or bust? Or what was the kind of analysis as to, continuing down the path of building Ava?
Yeah, I think it was a huge benefit that both Joe, my co-founder, and I have been doing product for a while and working with early stage founders also for a while. So like had some market comps to pull from. Our first tranche of funding, we had both strategic angels and institutional capital. What we were trying to do was backward map from what is it going to take to get a V1 product into market that we could actually start to get some signal around and understand whether we were onto something. So we backward mapped all of the cost buckets associated with that and came up with a number. I think it was also a little bit of reading the market. We ended up raising a little bit more than we had set out to raise. Raising is always hard. And so if you are at a moment where you have momentum, taking in a little bit more capital, I think is something that usually makes sense to do, but you obviously have to evaluate like your cap table. After raising that, we stopped and then started building, getting product into market, like having real users using it. After seeing some of the early signals that we were seeing and what we had learned, we were like, okay, now we need to go out and actually raise like a formal pre-seed round, which was, we were going out for like more capital. And that was the goal of that, was really to bring a monetized product to market. Like having that monetization milestone is huge. And really, that's really the thing that will tell you whether you have a product that people will stick with.
So you've now gone out for fundraising twice and you've been at this formally for a year. Is that correct?
A year as of March. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. You've made it
Thank
one
you.
year. Your baby has
Yeah.
lived for a
I know,
year.
1 year. Everyone says it's the hardest year. So hopefully that's true.
Yeah. But we also know the realities of fundraising. Less than 2% of venture capital money goes into women founded companies. So you are on an uphill battle for sure. What did that feel like?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, fundraising is, not my favorite part of company building for sure. I do think that it can be really energizing and that it also can be very clarifying. Some of the things that I've reflected on are that it like forced me to get really sharp about the story that we are telling. Like, why now? Why us? Why this market? Why this product? Like all of those things, which are incredibly useful to be able to articulate. I think on the other hand, to your point, it really exposed all of the like pattern matching and like bias that still exists out there on the market, especially when you're building in a category that has historically been underestimated because, it centers around mothers and families. So I learned that pretty quickly as well. And then I think the other piece is that was a little surprising to me. it's not just that you are raising capital, but you're educating the market. All of these VCs, they write constantly. They're like in the zeitgeist. They talk to each other constantly, and bringing them up to speed on what you're doing. It's actually moments of educating. So I think that's also useful to understand. During this process, have been feeling optimistic that there's more investors that are starting to understand that consumer AI is not just going to be horizontal chatbots. There's these huge opportunities in vertical, trusted, high frequency use cases. The other big thing that I'm excited about is that I see more investment going into caregiving and household labor and family infrastructure. We are actually living and breathing and making this into a category that didn't even exist, a couple of years ago. We're exposing all of the stuff that was invisible, and we are really making a new market. So I think that's super like exciting and energizing. To your point around like an uphill battle, a couple of points on that when you're building for mothers or even just like caretakers more generally. I think there's like this implicit assumption that what you're building is niche or small. I actually got that specific feedback a couple of times, and those were the days when I would cry. It was so hard for me to understand how people couldn't see what a huge and impactful problem this was, and calling it niche just felt so wrong. And then I think,
You're like,
women
we make
found
up 50% of the population?
like
I mean,
how
niche
is
is niche is bold. Sorry. Like that's
it's niche, right? Exactly, exactly.
yeah.
In terms of like expectation, women founders are expected to be both kind of mission driven, but then also hyper rational and have all of these different qualities that male founders aren't like evaluated on. Actually, listen to this whole thing about how like, implicit bias exists, just even the way that VCs ask questions to founders. So they tend to ask more risk questions to female founders and more opportunity questions to male founders. It actually helps you turn those risk questions into opportunity questions where you're like, okay, like, let's not talk about downside risk. Let's talk about upside possibility, right? The last thing I will say about it is that I also learned probably the hard way that I can't spend so much energy trying to convince people who fundamentally don't see the world the way that I do. Like, you're not going to change that person's mind if they think that ChatGPT is just going to take over the world. Like, no vertical AI product will ever exist. You're not going to change their mind. So I also just had to recognize and not take personally that's just about this person's thesis.
This is super helpful to me. Hearing this journey, I haven't heard it from you, right? And we're entering our fundraising era. It's such a skill to be able to bifurcate the projections that people have onto like yourself, right? Or like their ideas, not to let them allow it to project on you and then ruin your
Yeah.
momentum for something.
Yeah, totally. And just like you have to have so much resilience, I think, in terms of just your deep belief in what you're building. And there are going to be so many people who, for so many different reasons, don't believe it. You just have to be so resilient. It's interesting how quickly the market changes. Even just during this last raise period for our formal pre-seed, the signals and the feedback I was getting in late November, early December were really different than what I was getting in late January. Everyone in the world does not know totally what's happening in this world of AI. Like, they don't know what jobs are going to exist. They don't know what products are going to live and die. The economy is incredibly uncertain. So like all of that goes into play.
Was there anything that made you extremely excited about fundraising?
It's such a roller coaster. Like when you come out of a conversation where you feel like the person really understood you, they're like nodding aggressively along with you. They see the vision. That's like one of the most exhilarating feelings in the world, honestly. And then you have a lot of conversations where it doesn't go that way, or you think it goes that way. And then like, 2 seconds later, you get an email that they're passing. And so I just think it's the full on roller coaster, which is very hard to manage, like personally, emotionally, because you're so invested in this thing and you have to figure out ways of like not taking it personally. And so, yeah, I think when it's good, it's really good. And then when it's bad, it's really bad. So it's just such a roller coaster. It doesn't matter who you are. There's so much rejection. You're going to get 70 no's before you get a yes.
70 no's. Was that
I
real?
talked to over 100 people. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. In what period of time?
In like a month.
Amazing. Incredible. You're just literally on the phone all the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's all you do. It's all you do all day.
The highest high had to have been actually securing the money. What was the dollar amount that you raised?
We are in the process of closing that. We are raising about 1.4. So with the goal of sort of around, 2 million in total.
Amazing. Obviously, you're giving a portion of that away. Was were both of those rounds with an unvalued company or not priced company? Not priced.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've been raising on a safe, which is essentially an agreement for future equity. And we have not done a priced round yet. The rule of thumb that we've tried to stick to is that for each round, you should not be giving up more than 20% of the cap table or of the company. So we've been trying to stick with that.
You've gone through two phases. When do you plan to go back out to investors since there's many stages?
Yeah. So, like as it stands today, our big milestones for this year are we are bringing a monetized product to market, like on the App Store, in the early summer, and then the goal is to have 6-ish months of data that we can and like learnings that we can then really bring into a seed round, which we would then do sometime in quarter 1 of 2027. Um, so that's currently the thinking now. Things change all the time. So the other important thing to just recognize, which I definitely again had to learn the hard way, is just that there are optimal seasons and suboptimal seasons for fundraising over the summer. Like doesn't happen. Like everyone is gone. No one, just that's not a time when you can expect to have kind of the density of conversations that you need in order to be successful. So you either need to be raising in like quarter 3, like September, October, November, or you need to be raising in like quarter 1. That's also something that now we're like layering over.
We've talked a lot about fundraising and, how you have to manage the, product build. How have your not like personal finances been navigated that? How did you assess that prior to building Ava? And how has that, played into your entrepreneurial era?
So many things to acknowledge here, just in terms of just being a parent and a partner and needing to navigate what your personal runway looks like, and acknowledging that for the most part going to be either not drawing a salary for a bit or drawing a significantly reduced salary than what you are used to. You do really have to think like long and hard about whether that is something that you can take on realistically. A lot of questions there. And so I think the big one for me was just like, can I responsibly take this risk given my family obligations, given our stage of life, given my partner is also a founder? Like the thing that gave me kind of, conviction was just having my partner in my corner, really acknowledging the risk together. Him really pushing me on like, I think you really have to do this and try this and we will make it work and we will figure it out. Go into it clear-eyed with your partner.
Absolutely. You need a support system. So difficult to just jump out and leave. As we all know, building something from scratch is risky. Having that connection or understanding with your partner is so important if you have one.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Are you relying on the income from Ava?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, I think my co-founder and I made the decision early on that like we absolutely would not be drawing the same kind of salary that we were at our last, organizations, but that we did need to have some form of salary in order for this to be something that we could conceivably do with our partners and with our family obligations. I've talked to a lot of founders who don't pay themselves. I think that it can create some like really, really hard conditions to be successful, because if I'm worrying about money all the time, I am not at my best. I am not creative. I just feel the risk coming in and overwhelming me, and it becomes a mental health thing and all these things. So you have to be real about that with yourself as well.
Have you made any cutbacks on your life? I know you said you're not pulling the same salary. So how is that reflected in managing your household?
Has had a big impact. I think, just the navigation, the decisions that we are making, and it usually comes down to around, experiences for our children and like trips and travel and all of those things. And so not trying to pretend like they're easy decisions or that the trade-offs aren't really real and don't come with a lot of emotion attached to them, because they really do. But I think, again, being on the same page as your partner beforehand and then having that as like the base from which you're making those decisions is really helpful. And then also acknowledging that hopefully this is not forever and that you're making these calculated bets.
As founders, I don't know if you feel this way, but when I hear you talk about it and the passion that comes out of why you built Ava, right? Like you really believed in the problem. I was talking to my husband about this the other day too. And I was like, I have to believe that this is a $1 billion company, right? I didn't quit my job to not build that. Like and there's validation in the marketplace that there's other companies trying to do this. So it's not unreal. It's like, who's going to make it there first, right? Like who's going to get the first 5,000 users? Who's going to get the first 50,000 users? The level of passion you have for a venture backed company and the level of like just straight conviction that you're going to make this succeed is so important, because that's what ventures look for, especially in the early stages of funding, is is this a $1 billion idea, and is this person the person that's going to make it? And they all know it's a game. For those people that don't know much about venture capital, like effectively at the early pre-seed, early stages, they're betting on like 1 in 15 companies to actually make it, right?
Yeah,
Some are
if that,
betting,
sometimes 1 in 50 or yeah.
yeah, exactly. 1 in 50, 1 in 100. It's like
Yeah.
they're giving these money with the idea that like one portfolio company is going to make it and the rest may not do anything. And
Yeah.
so, it's worth acknowledging that you have to have like when they have ego in these questions that go towards it, it's also they're looking for that same level, right? Of just like,
Yeah.
I believe in this product. It is a $1 billion idea. If you don't believe in it, and I'm starting to learn that too. I did a leadership program called NLC. I'll never forget, like they bring this Venn diagram out and they're like, here are the people you're never going to convince to do something. These are the people that you are. And like, stop focusing
Yeah.
any effort on the people that are ideologically not going to change. And so I think that that's, a lesson that I learned. Thesis is so important. There's no reason to really reach out to a venture that doesn't do that or doesn't understand what AI is going to do, or that you have to over explain that to.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think back to the point of like, you're never going to convince someone who believes that, motherhood is niche, that it's not. You're never going to convince that someone believes that like there will only be horizontal AI. Yeah. So it's not worth your time and your emotion. But also the thing that I think you said, which is so true, is how much your personal belief matters and how much even in the morning when like you are having a day where maybe you don't believe, it's hard to believe every day, and so so much about managing your own personal emotions and momentum, and like power. You have to really figure out how you can show up as consistently powerful and momentum building every day as possible, which is it's really hard, but you really have to figure that out. I feel like that's like probably one of the hardest things for founders, honestly.
Totally. And I think you have to have that support system that believes it too. This belief, it has to come like, I have to feel supported that this is a $1 billion idea, because at the
Totally.
end of the day, anyone that's giving you money believes that too, or believes in some part of
Well, no
that. And
one's
that's
going to
really real.
believe it if you don't believe it, right? Like that's just, yeah, they're
Yeah.
never, they're never going to see it if you don't see
Yeah.
it.
So just to say a little bit more about the product, like where is it at today? And
So,
what's the plan
yeah,
for it?
so we are bringing a monetized version of our kind of core foundational product to market in early summer is our goal. And so that will be open to anyone on the app store, anyone anywhere who can use it. Um, and we are going to then be building kind of in parallel to that, really going very, very deep on some of these childcare coordination use cases. So really kind of using Ava to support parents in coordinating amongst each other in getting kids like to and from where they need to go. So think about like carpooling and play date coordination and making sure that like your child is going to summer camp with their four best friends and identifying which summer camp is even like great because so much of that information is really locked in people's heads. So much of this whole parenting space is really locked in people's heads. So we're really kind of really focusing a lot of our D efforts this year in that direction.
And what does it do right now? Like if someone logs into
Yeah.
Ava, what could they expect?
Yeah, so they give Ava access via a single sign-in, like via their Google or Apple account, and then automatically that means that Ava has access to email and to calendars that you're using as part of your kind of daily workflow. And Ava will read your email and triage it for family-related items, bring those things in, make sure that they show up on all the calendars that they need to, show up on, and that everybody who is part of your like household team is like aware of all of the things they need to be aware of. And then it also proactively looks ahead for tasks that you need to get out ahead of. So something like you have 4 birthday parties this weekend, you need to buy birthday presents for them. And then the really interesting and like awesome thing is that it will actually start to do the work for you. So it will identify, yes, you have 4 birthday parties. Then it will start to put together tailored lists of birthday party presents for each of those birthdays because it knows the age of the child. If there's any information about their preferences or likes, it has that. The amount of like context and information about your family that Ava has is very deep. And we're using that in like every interaction and then using that to get out ahead of things and then move the ball forward for you as much as possible.
So Ava is your virtual household assistant. She is Rosie the robot from the Jetsons.
We're trying to build is actually your chief of staff or your chief operating officer because we really don't want you to feel like you have to manage Ava. We want Ava to be kind of managing you, right? Like proactively, like saying, here's what we need to accomplish this week. Oh, and I've done these 4 things and I just need your approval on that. Right.
Honestly, I cannot wait for the Instacart plugin or the DoorDash
Yeah.
plugin. I can't wait for Ava to tell me that it like sent cookies to my kids' school for their birthday party.
Yeah, totally, totally. I think there's going to be more and more surfaces that are optimized for agents to be able to interact with over time. I think is improving every day. So I think that world is probably not that far away.
For sure. I know. I'm like, that's the like Ava, that's like my dream goal for Ava.
Yeah.
FYI. What comes next? What's the plan for Laura, really? Because this is focused on you as a founder.
I hope that I get to, continue to build and lead Ava for, many, many years, honestly. It's definitely the role that I have felt the most authentic in. I feel so grateful that I get to do it and to even give it a try. And so I want to be doing this for a long time.
You're not going to hope because we all know that you have to walk in saying that you will. So
Yeah.
when Ava makes it big and you've made it, what do you want to do with your like immense wealth? What's your philanthropic cause that Laura is going to lead?
Yeah, so I love the startup space. And so I think I would love to become, either a VC or an LP into VCs that are focused on issues that I care about and then founders who I think are traditionally overlooked and underinvested in. So I would love to play a role in sort of giving back to the next generation of like amazing female and diverse founders. I think that would be hugely, hugely gratifying and also allow me to have like a connection to what is new and what is being built because there's so many amazing ideas and so many problems honestly to solve in the world and so exciting to see people tackling them and just hoping that I can use the things I've learned to help somebody be more successful and maybe not make the mistakes that I have made.
We wrap up every podcast in the same way. What is one piece of advice you have for all the huntresses out there?
I think it's believe in yourself. And if you have a lot of conviction about an idea or a problem that you want to solve, go solve it. Like no one is coming to save us. You have so many more capabilities and skills than you think you do. Yeah, just do it.
Last thing, what does rich mean to you?
Yeah, rich to me means freedom from anxiety about the way that I can spend my time and the decisions that I have to make, or am able to make for my family, free to forge the path and live into that in the way that feels really authentic, and where you're not having to make trade-offs and decisions constantly, that diminish your goals and your life. Freedom, honestly, of your time. Like, where do you spend your time?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on Talk Rich to Me.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me.
If you enjoyed this episode of Talk Rich to Me, you'll love the Huntress Wealth app, where you can get more comfortable with money, make a financial plan, and make your money move. Sign up now at huntresswealth.com.